Thank you again to everyone who read and responded. I went through every single comment and have been talking about this with other people. I really appreciate everyone for taking the time to read and reply. Background: I'm a 30-year-old female in grad school and visit my family during school breaks. My sister, who is 26 years old, has been living with her fiancé, a 31-year-old male, in an apartment close to my mother's house. Over the last few years, they have been saving up for a down payment to move to a different state. In early 2024, my sister and I got into an argument because she and her fiancé got engaged while abroad when I was pet sitting for them. I found out through my friends who saw it on my sister's social media. When my sister and her fiancé dropped off gifts from their travels, my sister said she was surprised I got them an engagement gift because she heard I was upset about the engagement, presumably through our mother. I said I was upset, but that we didn't need to talk about it. I tried to shut down the conversation twice, but her fiancé insisted we talk about it because he said he was excited to bring me gifts. But I wasn't excited about their engagement. He claimed that the engagement was supposed to be about them, but I was making it about my feelings. I said that if they wanted to talk about it, then I wasn't as upset about the engagement as I was about my relationship with my sister. Last year, my sister had said that she didn't feel comfortable talking to me anymore because I came off as judgmental and condescending. I told her that I would work on it. She also brought up that when our father left when we were kids, I took it out on her and that she wanted more boundaries with me. I apologized, and then we didn't talk much after that. So when we spoke early this year, I asked what she meant by boundaries. She said that she made her boundaries clear when we last spoke, and that by asking about her boundaries, I was disrespecting them. I told her I thought there might be miscommunication because I wasn't sure what she was referring to, but she said there wasn't any. I asked her to specify what she was referring to, and she said that I knew what she was referring to because I was there. Eventually, she said I was hurtful, and that when our father left, I told her multiple times that he didn't love her, and that I had deliberately broken her toys when we were younger. I told her I wasn't trying to gaslight her, but I really didn't remember. I asked if she had more recent examples, and she said that when I moved home after undergrad, I once asked her to clear her desk off in the evening. But when she was taking too long, I knocked everything off her desk and screamed at her and kicked her out of the house. She said I kicked her out of the house multiple times and forced her to sleep on the streets, and that I destroyed her bedroom before. Around this time, her fiancé said he expected a considerate person to immediately apologize instead of asking questions, at which point I did apologize. I asked my sister if she still viewed me in the same way as she was describing. Before she responded, they asked if I felt characterized unfairly. I said that it didn't matter whether I felt it was unfair because the focus of the conversation right now was on my sister's feelings, not on me. I asked her if she wanted to spend time with me anymore, or if she felt obligated to, because we still had dinners together when I visited. She said she didn't have to answer that question. The next day, my mother said that my sister called, saying that her fiancé suggested they move into my mother's house. My mother said no, because I still came over for breaks. My sister called her back asking for $42, $5K as an engagement gift for the down payment of a house. My mother agreed, on the condition that she didn't move back in with her. After this, I returned to grad school, which is several states away. My sister asked me several times through my mother if I could pet sit for her while she was traveling. I said no. Recently, she quit her job at her fiancé's workplace and has been asking to move back in. My mother asked if my sister still expected the $42.5 thousand after moving back in. My sister said that because our mother already promised her the money, she couldn't take it back. I told my mother that I didn't care if my sister lived there, as long as I could still visit. My mother called me today to tell me that when she told my sister that I wanted to still visit for breaks, my sister said if I returned, I was wasting her a year on rent because she didn't want me there. My sister also told my mother to tell me to stay at an Airbnb when I visited home. But I can't afford to pay rent in an Airbnb on my current stipend. At this point, my mother and aunt told me to let them live there and wait 1-2 years before visiting home. I feel like I'm going crazy, and I'm really struggling to understand where my sister is coming from. My mother also wants my sister to move home because she's worried about her, which I understand. But I feel stressed about the situation and have no idea what I should do or even can do. I'm looking for input on whether there is something logical in my sister's behavior that I'm missing, and whether I should agree to not visit home for a year or two while she lives at our mother's house. To add, thank you everyone for your comments and thoughts. I need to head to bed because I have an early morning, but I'll try to respond more when I have time. I feel a lot less crazy after reading through these, so thank you. A lot of people brought up that I needed to stand up for myself more, which is something a lot of my friends have said too. My mother said she was going to talk to my sister and then get back to me, so I'll hear her out first and see where to go from there. Thank you again for your time and energy in responding. I really appreciate it. Almost forgot, I didn't expect this to get so many comments. I can't respond individually to everyone right now, but I want to clarify and answer some questions people brought up. Around the time my sister and her fiancé started dating, we got into an argument because I said it was inappropriate for him to be her doctor and that he asked her out during an appointment. Before then, my sister and I used to talk several times a week, but she stopped calling and my calls, texts weren't going through. I suspected she blocked me, but she kept saying she had phone issues. For the last few years, I have only been able to talk directly with my sister in person. All calls and texts went through someone else. Last year, she finally admitted to blocking me and said she wanted more boundaries, but didn't elaborate more than that. In this same conversation, she said that when our father left, I was around 8 years old and she was around 4. I took it out on her. She did not give examples. I apologized and she thanked me for being receptive. The rest and majority of this conversation was about how I came off as judgmental and condescending. When I asked for examples, she couldn't remember any, but I said I would try to be more mindful of my words and tone. Fast forward to this year. My sister asked me through her fiancé to fly home from school to pet sit for 3 weeks. I'm done with classes and I'm working full-time on my thesis. And my work said I could temporarily work remotely, so I was able to go. My sister and her fiancé got engaged while abroad. My sister has a significant following on TikTok, to the point of getting sponsorships. So when she posted about the engagement, my friends saw it first and told me. She wasn't planning to tell any of our family members. I wasn't upset that they got engaged. I was upset that they didn't tell me. I'd been feeling distant from my sister for several years now, but wanted to give her space. I was upset that in this time, she still asked me for money or to pet sit. And I always said yes, but it seemed like she wanted things from me rather than a relationship. When my sister and her fiancé dropped off gifts from their travels, my mother asked me not to argue with her. She said that she asked the same of my sister. This is why I tried to shut down the conversation twice when they brought up that I was upset about the engagement. But her fiancé kept insisting we talk about it. So I said that it wasn't that I was upset about the engagement itself. I was upset about my relationship with my sister. This is when I asked her about boundaries. I wanted to know what she wanted from our relationship and what our interactions would look like given we were no longer close, but she was still asking for favors. She said she made her boundaries clear last year. I disagreed and said, I think there was miscommunication because I still wasn't sure what her boundaries were. This was when she said I was hurtful and gave examples. I was mostly confused when she mentioned all these things, which is why I was asking questions. I have never kicked my sister out of the house or destroyed her room, and my mother agrees with me. There were things in what she was saying that didn't make sense to me, like why I would ask her to clear her own desk in her room in the middle of the night, yet get upset that she was taking too long and kick her out of the house, or how she was able to sleep on the streets without anyone noticing, including our family pets, who would have made a lot of noise. This was when her fiancé said he expected a considerate person to apologize instead of asking questions. I apologized then, which I regret now because I think by apologizing, I implied that I did the things she described. When her fiancé asked me if I felt characterized unfairly, I did feel that it was unfair. But I responded in the way I did because if I said yes, I think they would have accused me of gaslighting them. My sister had already brought up earlier in the conversation that I was blocking out memories. So I felt like if I gave a yes or no answer, I would still be accused of being hurtful. I thought by shifting the conversation back to my sister's feelings, we could focus on what she wanted from our relationship. But the conversation didn't turn out that way. I didn't write this in the original post, but after they left, I asked her fiancé if I could send a letter to my sister through him because she had me blocked and didn't want direct contact. In the text, I thanked them for coming over and having this conversation because it was difficult for everyone involved. I said that whenever I tried to explain my perspective, it unintentionally came off as an invalidation of hers, which is not my intent. I said that I had spoken to our mother, who agrees with me that what she is describing from adulthood never happened. I apologized again for my behavior in elementary school, when I told her our father didn't love her and when I had broken her toys. Her fiancé texted back that they didn't want further contact from me. The following day, my mother said that my sister had asked for cash as an engagement gift. My sister had originally asked for $100,000, but my mother talked her down to $42,500. Since then, I have not tried to reach out to my sister at all. She has still asked me multiple times through our mother to fly back to pet sit. I have said no every time. This leads to the present-day situation. I'm supposed to fly home soon, and the original agreement was that my sister would take the $42,500 and not move into my mother's house with her fiancé. But she said that since she quit her job, she needed to save up money faster and wants to move in the next 2 weeks. She quit because she said it was too stressful. She had been working at her fiancé's place for about a month. Before that, she was only doing social media sponsorships and getting $1,300 a month from my mother as financial support. My sister is now trying to move in and take the $42,500, but she says I'm not allowed to be there. I know all of this sounds insane, but my sister wasn't like this at all until recently. Everything she's saying and doing right now feels very uncharacteristic of her. We were close up until a few years ago, and everything she is now bringing up feels like it's coming out of nowhere. I know a lot of people have been saying to go no contact, but my mother and I are worried about her because she's lost all her friends, which is why she always asks me to fly into pet sit. And to everyone asking about my sister and her fiancé's finances, I did ask about that. My mother said that my sister said she doesn't know how much money he has saved up, but they had been saving up for the last few years. I don't know how much money he makes, but based on his job, the bare minimum should be $100,000 per year. However, I know he has student loans, so I don't know how much he's paying back. A few people also asked whether my mother financially supported me in the past. She has, yes, when I was in undergrad. My tuition and dorm were mostly covered with scholarships, but she covered whatever was left using a Parent Plus loan, which I agreed to pay back after grad school. She hasn't financially supported me since I was 20. I moved back home after undergrad for 1 year to work full-time and save money. After that, I moved out of state and have been financially independent since. Now for an update, I posted an update here, which is unfortunately not super great. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So you cannot go home for the next 2 years. You will not be allowed to celebrate a birthday or any holiday there, and you are not invited to the wedding. If your mother supports all of this, even though you cannot afford another apartment, then I really wonder what your mother thinks. Your sister quits her job and demands this money from your mother as an engagement gift, and saves her existing money for the move. If I were in your place and my mother agreed to my sister's terms, then I would know that I would go to absolute no contact. I would let them know that they would be informed about all the changes in my life through social media. In case of emergencies, they can contact my friends. And if my sister has moved, they can let me know. Then I will consider whether I still have a family. Comment 2. My personality, I would say. Okay, I won't come for visits. And then I would stay away from all of them. It's weird that your sister wants nothing to do with you but still wants you to pet sit. It sounds like, at least from her perspective, you have hurt your sister a lot. So I would just go no contact with her. If she wants any kind of relationship, just let her make the first move. Don't put your mom in a really awkward situation. Just don't visit while your sister is living there. Maybe your mom can come visit you, or you can meet somewhere else. Get creative with your visits. Now, for the update. Thank you again to everyone who read and responded. I went through every single comment and have been talking about this with other people. I really appreciate everyone for taking the time to read and reply. So, a lot has happened since my last post. After my mother talked to my sister about moving back in, my sister agreed to a sit-down conversation with me. I flew back home for this, hoping we could clear the air. My sister and her fiancé were already at my mom's house when I arrived. The atmosphere was tense, and I could tell this wasn't going to be easy. We started the conversation with my sister reiterating her boundaries. She said she didn't want me to contact her directly anymore, and that any communication should go through our mother. I agreed, but I asked her why she felt this was necessary. She said it was because she felt I was manipulative, and that I twisted her words. Her fiancé backed her up, saying that I had a history of making her feel small and insignificant. I tried to explain that I never intended to make her feel that way, but they both cut me off. My sister then brought up more instances from our childhood, saying that I used to tell her she was worthless and that no one would ever love her. I was shocked because I genuinely didn't remember saying those things. I apologized again, but it felt like my apologies were falling on deaf ears. Then, my sister dropped the news. She said that she and her fiancé had decided to move to another state sooner than planned, and that they needed the $42,500 immediately. My mother was hesitant, but eventually agreed to transfer the money. I felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief because they would be moving out, but frustration because it felt like they were manipulating my mother. A few days later, my sister and her fiancé moved out of my mom's house and into a rental while they finalized their plans to move out of state. My mom was visibly upset, but tried to put on a brave face. I stayed with her for a few more days to help her out and make sure she was okay. During this time, I found out that my sister had been telling our extended family that I was the reason she had to move out. She said that I was making her life unbearable and that she couldn't stand to be around me. This hurt a lot because it felt like she was trying to turn everyone against me. I decided to confront her about this, so I called her fiancé. He answered and said that my sister didn't want to talk to me. I insisted, and he finally put her on the phone. I asked her why she was spreading these lies about me. She said that she was just telling the truth and that I needed to accept responsibility for my actions. I was at a loss for words. It felt like no matter what I said or did, she would always see me as the villain. After that conversation, I decided to take a step back and focus on my own life. I went back to grad school and tried to put all of this behind me, but it wasn't easy. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, wondering if there was something I could have done differently. A few weeks later, my mom called me in tears. She said that my sister had called her, saying that they were struggling financially and needed more money. My mom was torn because she wanted to help, but didn't have much left to give. I told her that she needed to set boundaries and not let my sister take advantage of her. My mom agreed, but said it was hard because she felt responsible for my sister's well-being. Around this time, I started seeing a therapist to help me process everything that had happened. It was helpful to have someone to talk to who could provide an outside perspective. My therapist suggested that I focus on setting my own boundaries and not let my sister's actions dictate my life. Meanwhile, my sister and her fiancé continued to struggle. They had moved to a new state, but were having trouble finding stable jobs. My sister reached out to my mom again, asking for more money. This time, my mom said no. She told my sister that she needed to figure things out on her own. My sister was furious and accused my mom of abandoning her. This led to a huge blowout between my mom and my sister. My mom called me afterward, crying and saying that she didn't know what to do. I felt terrible for her, but also relieved that she was finally standing up for herself. As for me, I've been trying to move forward. I've been focusing on my studies and spending time with friends, but it's hard not to think about my sister and everything that's happened. I miss the relationship we used to have, but I know that things will never be the same. Looking back, I realized that there were a lot of red flags that I ignored. My sister's behavior had been changing for a while, but I didn't want to see it. I kept hoping that things would go back to the way they were, but that's not how life works. In the end, I think the best thing I can do is focus on myself and my own well-being. I can't change the past, but I can work on building a better future for myself. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It means a lot to me. Am I the idiot for snapping at my wife over dirty hands and making her leave with our baby? I do a lot of work on our cars. I have 2, she has 1, and my tools have become rusty and dirty over the years. I used to never wear gloves when I work on cars. Truthfully, it felt manly to just go without gloves when I was younger. But when I got with my wife 10 years ago, who is a bit of a clean freak, I've started wearing rubber gloves whenever I do anything. I ran out of gloves about a month ago and haven't had a chance to replace them. Today I replaced the shock assemblies on my daily. It also rained briefly while I was working on them. I was dirty as hell. My hands are covered and look like they've been charred. My wife stepped out to help me clean up my tools and went off on me about how disgusting my tools look. Compared them to our friends' tools, how they're so much cleaner than mine, and that basically she can't stand the idea of intimacy when she sees me working on our cars like this. My knee-jerk reaction was to just get pissed off, but I stopped myself and got a gallon of that pumice hand cleaner. I always use it. I was running low. I've told my wife that I'm extremely thorough when it comes to cleanup, but she says that she can't get over the image of my disgusting hands. My thoughts are that our friends do not do as much handiwork as I do. Not only do I work on cars, but I also remodel homes. I'm extremely comfortable in dirty situations, but I always clean myself thoroughly, not just for her sake, but for mine. I guess I'm asking for advice on how to continue being as handy as I am without disgusting my wife. There have been instances where, even when my hands aren't as black as night, she just recoils at the mere sight of my tools. Thanks for reading. Now for an update. Thank you all again for your words. It really helped me figure out why I was so upset. There was a nagging feeling in my head that I couldn't get rid of until I realized that I felt disproportionately disrespected by being compared to our friends' husbands. We had a talk before my shift today. It actually made me an hour late, but who cares? She's the light of my life. I should also say that there are a lot of stressors in our life currently. We had our first child 10 weeks ago. The house I'm flipping has been postponed an ungodly amount of times. Our savings, my full-time job, only allowed her to be at home for 4 months while I continue working. And we have 4 dogs in our house, the latest of which is an unsocialized, loud German Shepherd dog that I'm watching while my parents settle their divorce, seriously counting the days until she's gone. This morning, she came running out to me because 2 of the dogs, German Shepherd dog and one of ours, had gotten into a fight and there was blood everywhere. I broke it up and cleaned up promptly. I told her that I will strive to be a much cleaner person when I'm working with this stuff, but that I had a problem with how she compared me and how rudely she brought up this problem today. I don't have a problem with the content, just the delivery, are my words, verbatim. She brought up everything above and that she's been stressed out of her mind, especially this morning, with a crying baby and raging dogs. I told her that I empathize with her, but even while I experienced the same stressors, even after she blatantly compared me to our friends, I could not fathom being as disrespectful to her as she was to me. We talked more about concrete, long-term, and short-term solutions. She apologized for acting so rudely, and we promised to have a team mentality. Again, I want to thank everyone here for your words. This has helped us tremendously. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Dude, I'm glad you are working together to find solutions, but one simple way of reducing the stressors is staring you right in the face. The German Shepherd dog needs to go. It's adding stress and labor to your family, and you are therefore not in a position to be caring for it for your folks. Whilst they are sorting through their divorce, it needs to go. A new home needs to be found for it as soon as possible. Comment 2. Why do you have large dogs that aren't yours, fighting in your house with your 10-week-old child? Please wear gloves for your own health and for hers. And no matter how tired you are, shower before bed each and every day. But most importantly, get those fighting dogs out of your house. You and your partner just had a baby. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, after our talk, I thought things were on the mend. I really did. But this past week has been interesting to say the least. It started with me trying to keep my promise to be cleaner. I went out and bought a new set of gloves and even some new tools to replace the rustiest ones. I spent an entire afternoon organizing my workspace and cleaning up. I thought it would make a difference, but I guess I underestimated how deep the issue ran. The first sign of trouble was when I was working on the house flip. I was installing new cabinets and had to take off my gloves to handle some delicate parts. My hands got dirty again, and when I came home, my wife saw them before I had a chance to clean up. She didn't say anything at first, but I could see the disgust in her eyes. It was like a punch to the gut. I quickly washed up, but the damage was done. She was distant the rest of the evening, barely speaking to me. The next day, things got worse. Our German Shepherd got into another fight with one of our dogs. This time, it was more serious. There was a lot of blood, and I had to rush one of the dogs to the vet. My wife was hysterical, trying to calm the baby while dealing with the chaos. I managed to get everything under control, but it was clear that the stress was taking a toll on both of us. That night, we had another argument. She brought up the dirty hands again, saying she couldn't stand it anymore. I tried to explain that I was doing my best, but she wasn't having it. She said she felt like she was living in a constant state of filth, and that it was affecting her mental health. I felt like I was failing her, no matter how hard I tried. In the middle of all this, I made a huge mistake. I was so focused on trying to keep things clean and organized that I forgot to lock up my tools one night. The next morning, I found that some of my tools were missing. I was furious and blamed my wife for distracting me with her constant complaints. She was hurt and accused me of not caring about her feelings. It was a mess. The fallout from that argument was brutal. We barely spoke for days. I could see the strain in her eyes, and I knew she was struggling. I tried to make it up to her by taking on more of the household chores and giving her some time to herself. But it felt like I was just putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. In the midst of all this, I started to reflect on our past. I remembered how we used to be so in sync, how we could handle anything together. But things changed after our first child was born. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, and the added responsibilities took a toll on both of us. I realized that my wife had always been a bit of a clean freak, but it became more pronounced after the baby arrived. She was trying to create a safe and clean environment for our child, and my dirty hands were a constant reminder of the chaos she was trying to control. I also thought about my own upbringing. My dad was a mechanic, and I grew up around dirty tools and greasy hands. It was normal for me, and I never thought twice about it. But my wife came from a different background. Her parents were meticulous about cleanliness, and she was raised in a spotless home. I started to see how our different upbringings were clashing in our current situation. But before I could address these underlying issues, another crisis hit. The house flip I was working on got delayed again, and I found out that we were going to lose a significant amount of money. I was devastated and stressed out, and I knew it was going to put even more strain on our already fragile relationship. I tried to keep it together, but the stress was too much. I snapped at my wife over something trivial, and she broke down in tears. She said she couldn't take it anymore and that she needed a break. She packed a bag and took the baby to her parents' house. I was left alone with the dogs and my thoughts. As I sat in the empty house, I realized how much I had taken my wife for granted. I had been so focused on my own stress and problems that I hadn't truly listened to her or tried to understand her perspective. I felt like a failure as a husband and a father. I knew I needed to make things right, but I didn't know where to start. I decided to take a step back from the house flip and focus on my family. I reached out to my wife and asked her to come home so we could talk. She agreed, but it was clear that things were still very tense between us. When she came back, we had a long and difficult conversation. I apologized for not being more understanding and for letting my own stress affect our relationship. She admitted that she had been too harsh and that she needed to work on her own issues as well. We both agreed that we needed to find a way to support each other better and to communicate more effectively. But even with that resolution, things are still far from perfect. We're both still dealing with a lot of stress, and it's going to take time to rebuild the trust and connection we once had. I know I have a lot of work to do, and I'm committed to making things right. But it's not going to be easy, and I have to accept that there are no quick fixes. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my wife? Her threesome fantasies make me uncomfortable. I have the most amazing marriage. We met at 18 and got married a couple years later, and have a wonderful large family. We don't argue, we communicate really well, and we've grown up together as best friends. Intimacy has always been amazing for both of us. We're open with our likes and dislikes and talk comfortably when we want to try new things or if something is off the table. But that's recently changed. During intimacy, we have role-playing and dirty talk. The theme changes each time. But in the past month, my wife only wants to fantasize about threesomes and swinging. She often dirty talks about having intimacy next to another couple or in public. She likes to pretend we have another woman with us or another man. I'm really not comfortable with that, and it's a red line. Maybe I'm sad, but intimacy for me is about love, and I have zero interest in sleeping with someone else or having someone sleep with my wife. I told my wife this, but she won't stop with the fantasies. Last night during intimacy, she whispered in my ear that she wants me to sleep with someone when I go away for work and that we would definitely have a threesome one day. She talked about wanting to watch me finish inside a different girl, and then, after intimacy, she told me that she bought a new toy from a naughty online shop that's a realistic weenie. She said she wants to practice being spit roasted. I worry that she's doing this because she wants to sleep with another man and thinks that she can do it if she lets me have intimacy with another woman, or that she has a new intimacy desire but isn't being respectful of my red lines. We both hate cheaters, and I've never worried about that for a moment. But to be honest, this makes me think she cheated and wants to make herself feel better. Or maybe I'm being paranoid. What is the best way to approach this? Thank you in advance. Now for an update. Thank you for all the amazing comments, opinions, and suggestions. It's made me think deeply, and I've come to the conclusion that a really honest conversation is needed. I'm planning that next week when we have some time off from work. We'll keep you updated. Now for another update. Had the chat tonight. Told her everything very honestly. She felt the need to change how we live our lives since a serious medical incident a few years ago. The intimacy fantasies were just that. Fantasies. She admitted that the offer to sleep with someone was real, not because she wants me to do it, but because she wanted me to know that after surviving cancer, she doesn't want me to miss out on any life desires. She had no idea that I didn't want that at all, and she appreciates knowing it now. She's apologized, and we've discussed everything at length. She just wanted to role-play different things and thought a threesome was something most men wanted. Now she knows it isn't. She is respecting my boundaries. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. There's nothing wrong with how you view intimacy. People have different views on it, and that's totally okay. It is incredibly concerning that your wife isn't listening to you, not consenting to these fantasies. Honestly, I'd advise just not having intimacy with her or stopping the act the moment she brings them up again. You deserve to feel comfortable and safe during intimacy. There's nothing wrong with you and your views on intimacy. Comment 2. Everyone is allowed to have fantasies. However, this fantasy doesn't play out well in reality. 95% of relationships that start out monogamous and are subsequently opened end in failure. I see the same story here play out and read it all the time. It always ends badly. I strongly suggest you get yourselves into couples counseling to work this out. Good luck. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all your comments and support. So, after our big talk, things seemed to settle down for a bit. We went back to our usual routines, and the bedroom stuff got a lot less intense. We were both trying to be more considerate of each other's feelings. But then, about 2 weeks ago, I noticed my wife was acting a bit off. She was more distant, spending more time on her phone, and seemed distracted even when we were together. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed from work or something. One night I decided to ask her if everything was okay. She assured me that she was fine, just tired, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A few days later, I came home early from work and found her in the living room crying. She told me she had been feeling really guilty about the whole threesome fantasy thing, and that she was worried she had damaged our relationship. I reassured her that we were okay and that we just needed to keep communicating. But then, she dropped a shocker. She admitted that she had been talking to an old friend from college, a guy she used to have a crush on. They had reconnected on social media and their conversations had started to get a bit flirty. She swore that nothing physical had happened, but she felt terrible about it and wanted to come clean. I was shocked and hurt, but I appreciated her honesty. We decided to take a break from social media and focus on each other. Things seemed to improve for a while, but then I started noticing more red flags. She was still distant, and our conversations felt forced. One night I couldn't sleep and decided to check her phone. I know it was an invasion of privacy, but I was desperate for answers. What I found confirmed my worst fears. She had been messaging the guy again, and their conversations were even more flirty than before. They were talking about meeting up the next time he was in town. I confronted her the next morning, and she broke down in tears. She admitted that she had been feeling unfulfilled and was seeking validation from someone else. She insisted that she still loved me and wanted to work things out, but I was devastated. I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. We decided to go to couples therapy to try and salvage our marriage. The first few sessions were tough, but we started to make some progress. We were both committed to being honest and working through our issues. But then, last week, I got a call from my boss. He told me that there had been some complaints about my performance at work, and that I needed to get my act together or face serious consequences. I realized that my personal life was starting to affect my job, and I knew I needed to make some tough decisions. I sat down with my wife and told her that we needed to take a break. I needed time to focus on myself and figure out what I wanted. She was heartbroken, but she understood. We agreed to separate for a while and see if we could find our way back to each other. During this time apart, I've been reflecting on our relationship and trying to understand where things went wrong. I've realized that we both have a lot of unresolved issues from our past that we need to address. For example, my wife mentioned that she had always felt pressured to be the perfect wife and mother, and that she had never really dealt with the trauma of her cancer diagnosis. I, on the other hand, have always struggled with feelings of inadequacy and fear of abandonment. One night, I was going through some old photo albums and found a picture of us from our early days together. We looked so happy and carefree, and it made me realize how much we've changed over the years. I started to think about the moments that had brought us closer and the ones that had driven us apart. I remembered a time when we were first dating, and she had surprised me with a weekend getaway. It was one of the best weekends of my life, and it made me realize how much I still loved her. But then, I also remember the times when we had hurt each other, intentionally or not. Like the time she had made a hurtful comment about my job, or the time I had forgotten our anniversary. These memories made me realize that we both had a lot of work to do if we wanted to rebuild our relationship. I've also been thinking about my own desires and what I want from life. I've realized that I need to be more assertive about my needs and boundaries and not just go along with what others want. I've started to focus on my hobbies and interests, and it's been really therapeutic. As for my wife, she's been doing some soul searching of her own. She's been seeing a therapist to work through her issues and has been trying to reconnect with her passions. She's also been spending more time with our kids and trying to be more present in their lives. But despite all this progress, I can't shake the feeling that our marriage might be beyond repair. The trust has been broken, and I'm not sure if we can ever get back to where we were. I still love her, but I'm not sure if that's enough. So, that's where we are now. We're both trying to figure out our next steps and see if we can find a way back to each other. It's been a tough journey, and I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm hopeful that we'll both come out of this stronger, whether we're together or not. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.